Open. So hi, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, and thank you for coming to our town hall tonight. My name is Camille Casaretti. I'm the president of CEC 15. Our district extends from downtown Brooklyn to Sunset Park and east past Prospect Park and Greenwood. I'm here tonight with my Brooklyn North colleagues to expose and elevate the necessary repairs that are required in NYCHA residences. These issues negatively impact the lives of our students and families. We have a significant concern surrounding stagnating building conditions of the New York City Housing Authority. Many of our district families are being negatively impacted by the lack of attention to critical repairs. Unhealthy living conditions create long-term academic and medical problems for our families and students. Children can't learn when they're exposed to black mold, no heat or hot water, broken kitchen appliances, and peeling paint. We've come together this evening to help break down, inform, and build a discussion around implementing significant changes to NYCHA buildings, changes that value health, dignity, and humanity. These concerns have been clarified and published by our public advocate, Jumaane Williams, in an expose called How the Other Half Lives in Public Housing. John Francis Esquire, Deputy Public Advocate for Housing Equity, is here with us tonight and we'll talk a bit about their findings. We are going to move to public comment after John speaks, and then we'll be discussing some solutions and how you can help to advocate for this much needed change. I want to welcome my colleagues from CEC 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 23, 32, and all of our friends in Brooklyn South, Queens, Staten Island, Manhattan, and the Bronx. Thank you all for being with us here tonight and supporting our families. I'm going to hand the floor over to CEC 16 President Juan McLean, and he's going to talk a little bit about what he's experienced in District 16.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Such a very important conversation at a very necessary time. I want to thank the public advocate for this report. This report identifies one of the NYCHA developments in my neighborhood, 303 Vernon. We, for years, have been dealing with situations at this building with our families. The living conditions there are deplorable. We have had a family, and I'll give a little bit about this family, who is a family and had students at two of our schools, one of our elementary schools and one of our middle schools. And the family was living just in unbearable conditions and was beginning to be marked chronically absent. And once the principal identified that his family was being marked chronically absent, they began to investigate and find out the family was living in these deplorable conditions. The family then reached out to me, this principal then reached out to me to see what assistance the CEC can give. And we connected that family with our assembly woman, Zimmerman, our state senator, Jabari Bridgeport, and our city council member, Chiose, and we worked to get this family issues resolved. The long story is this family ended up having to move out of that development and to move all the way to Coney Island because the development was so bad and they wanted the person to live there under the conditions as they were fixing it. The family ended up getting sick. It just was just a horrible situation. So I think that this report, it just highlights just some of the issues that we are faced and why our students are challenged with coming to school and other insecurities that happen within communities like ours. So we're just here tonight to really have a conversation. And as Camille said, at the end, we will be putting out some solutions of what we think could be done. Once again, thank you for the opportunity.
So thank you, Naquan. We will hand the floor over to John now.
Well, I was going to speak, but seems like the public advocate will be surprising us. So just give him a couple minutes. He's trying to get on. think he didn't register, so give me a couple seconds.
Okay, sure. While we're waiting, I know many of you had written saying that you'd like to make some public comments. So if you want to just drop in the chat something like, I'd like to say something, just to identify yourself, that would be totally great. It'll help us a little bit later when we get to the public comment period. And for those of you who came on a little bit late, feel free to drop your name and district in the chat so that we get a sense of where everyone is coming from. And thank you so much for being here tonight.
In the meantime, do you mind putting up the slide regarding the white pages? And we can scroll through those as I try and get him on. So I apologize, everyone. Hold on a sec.
Denise, you're doing that, right?
Until he comes on, I might as well just fully introduce myself. So my name is John Francis. I am the Deputy Public Advocate for Housing Equity. Prior to doing this, I was a housing attorney in Queens and Manhattan's court for the last 3 years. I've taken on a lot of NYCHA cases, so I've been in a lot of NYCHA developments and apartments. Hold on a second. Okay, he's getting on. I have represented clients who are elderly and disabled, clients who are just trying to get by, clients who've been caught up in different aspects of the NYCHA system. I've seen every condition imaginable, and I can definitely assure that this report does highlight those conditions with much clarity. One story from this report, for example, is the story of tenant R. She was a mother of several children. She was forced out of her apartment due to untenable conditions into the shelter system and was then forced to come back to those same conditions because of the lack of repairs that were being conducted by the NYCHA management. Let's check and see if he's on yet.
He's on.
Oh, he's on?
Yes.
Sir, are you there?
Peace, everyone.
Good night, sir. Everyone, Public Advocate Jumaane Williams.
Oh, I'm up?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, John. And I apologize. I wasn't 100% sure if I can make it, but I really wanted to be here. I appreciate what everyone is doing. So thank you very much for asking me to come and for having me. I really appreciate it. And the conversation that we're having now is really supposed to push some real change. And so I have a couple of words prepared I'd like to share. So we know tenant voices and tenant leadership involvement are the only way to deliver the kinds of change that hundreds of thousands of NYCHA residents need, deserve, and are praying for. But while the cost of living in our city is only going up, conditions in our city's public housing have long been declining. The truth is that this kind of neglect, and by the way, I don't know, John, have you said any of these?
Yes, sir. I mentioned the story of tenant R just now,
Okay.
just talking about how she was forced out into the shelter, then to come straight back into the same situation.
What I'm saying now, you haven't said yet.
No, not yet, sir.
Okay, much appreciated. Thanks, everybody. But yeah, while the cost of living in our city is only going up, conditions in our city's public housing have long been declining. And we know the truth is that this kind of neglect amid dangerous conditions is not new. Over 100 years ago, Jacob Riis shocked New York City when he exposed the conditions that children and families were living under in tenements throughout Lower Manhattan. Recently, our office released a report drawing inspiration from Jacob Riis's example. We entitled ours, How the Other Half Lives in Public Housing. Our report shines a spotlight and a camera flash on the conditions that tenants across our city face in public housing. It shows how the other half a million live. This is enough to be a city, by the way, by itself. And how New Yorkers who form the backbone of our city are often confined to unacceptable and often even dangerous living conditions. We unveiled the report at Riis Houses, and less than 12 hours later, that complex would become the clearest or cloudiest, however you want to define it, example yet of how NYCHA has failed in its obligations to provide safe, quality housing that tenants deserve and are paying for. When we spoke to tenants on the ground before the original arsenic results were public, they were already angry and exhausted. This compounded the city-sanctioned suffering. NYCHA has long been the city's worst landlord, and no one can truly be surprised by these revelations anymore, but they are still shocking and enraging, and they should remain that way. NYCHA failed a test of its management. Tenants who have lived with fear for the last week and cloudy water weeks before that needed full answers and accountability. From the first complaint of the water issues to the ultimately revised and corrected results, NYCHA mismanaged this moment as the same kind of issues we highlighted in our recent report that continue from crisis to crisis. NYCHA needs funding, definitely. I want to make that clear. We have to get more funding for NYCHA. But its management failures in this incident and in countless before it have led to a bankruptcy of tenant trust and is not necessarily related to funding. Rebuilding that trust is a long process that relies on truly listening to and working directly with tenants. NYCHA must immediately start proving its commitment to repairing both its buildings and the trust of tenants paying to live there. As part of that work, my office has just introduced legislation requiring NYCHA to report on any outside legal expenditures it occurs. We have already seen the human cost of NYCHA's longstanding systemic failures and untenable conditions. This legislation will provide the public with a sense of the financial cost of these failures and accounting for legal actions NYCHA is involved in, which extend beyond the scope of its in-house counsel. It is essential to have transparency about this kind of expense in order to identify patterns and prevent avoidable damage or unnecessary waste. Money should be going to fix buildings, not legal problems. Every New Yorker deserves a safe, deeply affordable home. And I'm calling all my partners in government to make the urgent and systemic changes NYCHA needs to again be the best public housing in the United States. No one has witnessed the conditions documented on our report. No one who has witnessed those can deny the need for immediate investment and reform. NYCHA did have an opportunity recently to begin to accept responsibility, take accountability, and pledge change. It was an important moment to show the people living in NYCHA complexes a level of care and commitment and ownership of past failures and pledge to be better. While some that were there tried to do that, very glaringly, our NYCHA chair, Greg Russ, refused to show up. I don't know what is more disconcerting, the NYCHA CEO was recently stepped down during the midst of a turmoil, or that he's still serving in the capacity of chair, making a pretty good salary, a chair who resides 5 states away with a distance of over 1,000 miles and refused to come take accountability for the disaster that happened in Riis. The truth is, NYCHA's failures have persisted across chairs, mayors, and governors, and decline has persisted across decades. So ultimately, I'm not sure it matters who heads NYCHA unless they are willing to face accountability and reality and implement deep structural changes to recover from the bankruptcy of tenant trust, compounded with the real need for increases in funding across all levels of government. Accountability for those recent crises of management at NYCHA is critical. As our report showed, there's a lot to account for. It brings me back to what we saw and documented in our report. As I know John started saying, during my 6 development visits, the office documented living conditions that were unsafe, untenable, and inexcusable. NYCHA's tenants, including thousands of children who call NYCHA home, deserve better from public housing, and New York City can and must make long-needed improvements. I want to thank the tenants across the city who shared their stories, their homes in pursuit of change. Throughout the touring process, we heard a familiar story from tenants that upon learning of the office's imminent inspection, NYCHA conducted last-minute cleanups and papered over temporary repairs. This is an unsustainable and inexcusable system of support. Repairs should be conducted based on tenant needs, not inspection schedules or media attention. NYCHA has repeatedly been named overall worst landlord in the city on the Public Advocate's annual watch list, a watch list that we put out, my office, and we'll be putting out soon for this year. The conditions across the 5 boroughs are at once entirely unacceptable and entirely predictable given NYCHA's history of mismanagement and chronic underfunding. We need both better funding and better management. It's not either or. You can get more funding and have very bad management and still be in this situation. And NYCHA can't keep denying accountability by pointing to funding gaps. Taking ownership of NYCHA's past and present failures rather than passing the buck is essential to improving its future and dangerous conditions of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers paying to live there. They can start by implementing recommendations of my office and the tenants we spoke to. Just a few of those recommendations in our report. There must be an administrative process in place for residents to follow when work orders have been closed, but work has not been completed. Lots of tenants had their work orders closed. They had no idea it was closed and the work wasn't even done. The city should mandate automatic inspections by New York City inspectors and issuance of any building or housing code violations. Complaints to 311 must trigger dispatching city inspectors to inspect NYCHA apartments. NYCHA must improve its contracting hire practices by developing a reliable list of contractors who are properly certified to do the work, have a track record of quality work, and are regularly reviewed. NYCHA should scale the number of living supers to the number of residents and units at each building to ensure they are proportional to each other. NYCHA should have security in senior citizen buildings. I want to make sure all of our recommendations are city. We try to deal with what the city could do right now. How the other half lives in public housing is a roadmap of where we are, how we got here, and what we can do to fix it. New York City can again have world-renowned public housing, and this report can be a catalyst in that fight. Most important, tenant involvement and tenant leadership. And I want to thank all of you, the partnership, for your engagement and for having me today. I want to thank the CEC and everyone here for drafting a resolution that I hope passes in support of that work, and really beginning to show the intersectionality of what people are dealing with across the city. We can no longer be in our silos, and what's happening here is a great example of the intersectionality of what people are dealing with on a regular basis. And the more we intertwine these issues, the more success we're going to have. So I just want to thank everybody again for giving me an opportunity to share some words, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. So peace and blessings and love and light to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of your incredible advocacy. We really appreciate you and so happy that you are here with us leading this work. So, and great that you were able to come after all. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I just want to acknowledge that we have Senator Brisport here with us. Thank you for being here, Jabari. We appreciate you. If there are any other elected officials in the space, please drop your name in the chat. We want to say hello to you. I am going to turn the floor over to CEC 14 President Taj Sutton, and she is going to help us moderate public comment. Taj?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the public advocate and all my colleagues in our Brooklyn North CECs. It's great to see over 50 folks on this call. I think we all understand the urgency of this issue, and we're so grateful for the resources and support of the public advocate's office. Camille, are we jumping right in? Should I encourage folks to utilize the raise hand or chat features? You are muted, my dear.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, at this time, well, I know that Betty Bernhard is here and wanted to speak. And I would encourage any of the RA presidents who might be here. I know some of you are having meetings this evening, and so it's possible that there are some representatives here in their place, but please just raise your hand if you'd like to speak.
Fantastic. Thank you, Camille. Folks, you can utilize the raise your hand feature, or you can type in the chat and we will go ahead and give you the floor. Thanks again, everyone, for your time and attention to this really important issue. While folks decide what they might want to say, I also have some resources to share. We know that our tenant organizers have been leading this fight for a long time, and this is an ongoing conversation that often gets put to the wayside. There are also a lot of community-based organizations, and we're going to be sharing some resources later. I'm going to pause because I see someone in the chat, and so I want to go ahead and allow you to speak. Betty, please go ahead.
I just want to say, I just want to thank everyone again. I'm sorry I have to jump. But John Francis, the Deputy Public Advocate Housing, is here. I did want to shout out Senator Bridgeport as well. I can't see everybody. But just thank you, everyone, and have an awesome night. Thanks again.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jumaane. Betty, are you able to unmute?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. I work in Red Hook Initiative as an outreach worker. So I have hand experience of seeing mold conditions of people's apartments because I do door knocking. And just today, I have an elderly lady that lives in 93 Century Mall, and her entire apartment is filled with mold. Now, I've been reporting it, housing, they're coming over, they touch it, they put a Band-Aid on it, and that was it. But she's been having a lot of headaches, so I advise her to go to the doctor and check herself because it's not fair. I mean, this whole entire Red Hook area is infested with rodents on a day-to-day basis because it's either you have to carry a flashlight and not step on them because they run ragged. They run really everywhere. A lot of kids also are experiencing rash from being in apartments in here, which I have had knowledge of that, which I take care of that too. A lot of apartments here are not being well maintained. You know, like the garbage compactors are not working, so all the rodents are in there. They're being infested with those fruit flies coming to people's apartments. I mean, I could go on, but I'm not gonna take up the whole entire meeting, but I'll put my email in if anybody wants to know more, they feel free to call me or G-chat me, but thank you a lot.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you and all the RAs for all the work you do. Thank you for making it plain and giving us some of those specific examples. Sometimes people don't realize the impact that this has on our families and particularly our young children living in these conditions. So we appreciate you laying that out for us. And we thank you and the Red Hook Initiative. We have some other.
There's one more thing too that
Go ahead, Betty.
housing has been doing a lot is that when residents do call for these tickets, they close it on them. And I feel like the call center itself has to be investigated because today, twice, not once, twice, I called to make a ticket and the lady's gonna tell me I don't make tickets. So I don't know, I know it didn't happen to me, it happened to a lot of residents, so that call center has to be investigated because they're not taking their job serious when people call for mold, for leaks, or any other conditions that are dealing with their apartments. But like I said, thank you so much. I'm not gonna hold up anything more.
Thank you. That's a really good point, and I see some affirmation from you and for you in the chat. We have some other RA presidents, and we want to prioritize them for comments first. Is Ivan Banda here with us this evening?
Yes.
Yes, please.
That's the next list, actually. That's
okay.
the list of people who registered that had comments. But since nobody has their hands up, let's just move to that list.
Okay, go ahead, Ivan.
No, go ahead with the list. I'm a CEC member and I'm just here supporting the meeting.
Oh, thank you. All right. CECs represent.
Yes.
Lillian Robinson. No problem. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I know some of these names might not be on our RA president, so we want to give you guys a priority.
It doesn't look like Lillian is here yet.
Okay, no worries. I know Kim is a parent leader. Betty already spoke. Do we have Zach Martin?
Zach, are you still here? I saw you earlier. You had written in the registration that you wanted to talk a little bit. Maybe he left.
And no worries if not. If folks are having any technical difficulty or can't speak at this moment, feel free to utilize the chat or raise hand feature. We can always bring it back around to you. Let's see if Damon Lawrence is here.
I
and would
have
like to
one
speak.
question. Somebody put it in the chat if you guys got any translation, because somebody needs somebody to translate.
Thank you, Betty.
Yvonne, are you able to help with interpretation?
Yes,
I
I
could
put
get-
it, I put them on the chat, Camille.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you, Ivan. And do you maybe also just wanna, Ivan, I'll give you a minute to just introduce yourself and let folks know that interpretation is available.
Oh yes, Tash. Thank you very much. My name is Ivan Banda. I'm a member of CEC 15. I've been I have this seat through the Brooklyn Board of President office, and I've been working with our community in Sunset Park and Red Hook. And I am also a native Spanish speaker, and whenever possible, I also help parents that only speak Spanish in our schools. And I do a little bit of translation. I translate documents, and I'm here to support our president tonight. And if la señora Inga, si usted tiene alguna pregunta, escríbala en el chat y yo lo traduzco para que puedan preguntarlo aquí en nuestra reunión esta noche. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see some other folks. So thank you, Betty, for uplifting that for us. Thank you, Yvonne, for helping to interpret. I see some other folks from residents associations are joining and chatting. Nahisha, would you like to say a few words?
No, I just want to say thank you. I'm sorry I jumped on late. I was in
No
a
worries.
so I wasn't able to jump on earlier, but sorry I missed most of what was going on. I just wanted
No
to check
worries
in.
at all. We appreciate you
Bye.
being here. Also, just I'll uplift some of these things from the chat as well. We have some residents in Stuyvesant Garden who are having water issues. Georgette has an aunt who lives in public housing, a mother-in-law who lives in public housing, and mom works in public housing, and the list goes on. So we have skin in the game. There are issues arising with our notices being posted. Kim is just sharing with us that she's a NYCHA child. When she hears the status today, her heart tears. One of the most nurturing environments to grow up in, and a community circle. No one deserves not to have the basics of living. We could not agree more, Kim. And I also see you on our list if you would like to say a few words. I also want to flag that Destinus is flagging that tenants are afraid to speak up because we get breach of rules and regulation. She lived in her place for 5 years and the heat is still broken. Betty sharing that the water was also brown. So these are right now conditions that our parents, our families, and our students of public education, right, are living with and dealing with every day while trying to work, while trying to be successful in school. And it shouldn't be the case.
I'm gonna also post my contact information in the chat so you guys can all email me and call me so I can get on top of these issues.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Camille,
John.
do you see-
Taj, can I
Go.
just interrupt a minute? I wanted
Yes.
to elevate that we have Donovan Swanton from the Borough President's Office. Thank you for being here. And oh, he just dropped his information in the chat. And we also have Superintendent Alvarez from District 15. Thank you so much for being here. Tazeen Azad from the Panel for Education Policy is here. And I'm still checking names, but I noticed that Zach Martin is here. So maybe if he is ready to speak, he could unmute too. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. I'm incredibly grateful. Turn my camera on too, everyone see me. Incredibly grateful this is happening. CEC 13 parent, also former CEC 15 parent. And Gowanus and Fort Greene, NYCHA advocate, particularly just thinking about the youth, running our youth mentor program in both of those neighborhoods. So just two things. Donovan obviously is way more efficient in terms of policy and supporting in this endeavor, particularly around his great work in organizing the CECs around conversations to raise issues collectively. But two things again, for me, just letting everyone know, as the faith community organizer for the Brooklyn Borough President, my goal is to visit every tenant association meeting. So if you're up and running, you have my information in the chat, and I would really love to visit to hear the concerns of the residents in the meetings, just to let people know that I'm present, and that the Borough President wants to hear the concerns on the ground from these residents. And secondly, particularly my goal is to make sure that faith communities are raising the issues in their meetings and amongst their own about the issues that face many of their residents as congregants. So, and this is across the spectrum. So if you are part of a Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Jewish congregation, or any other religious affiliation, I want to make sure that your faith community is representing the needs and the concerns of NYCHA residents, raising that issue collectively in your gatherings, and finding ways to advocate more effectively for NYCHA residents who are among the most neglected, as we understand, the most neglected and segregated residents in New York, particularly around policy issues where simple things like 311 are not available to NYCHA residents. So just a reminder again that faith communities play a vital role on the ground in supporting residents in the everyday life that they experience in New York. So again, my information's in the chat. You can, and that's my cell phone, so you can certainly contact me. I have been advocating for public housing residents for close to 10 years, particularly in Gowanus and Fort Greene. I have deep friends and relationships with public housing residents who have taught me so much about resilience and what it means to be a true New Yorker. So just want you to know I'm here, and really grateful this conversation's happening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Zach, and thank you for making that connection. To our faith-based communities and organizing, such an underutilized resource, so we appreciate you. I see that Tavina has a hand up. Tavina, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tavina Willis. I am a community organizing manager at Red Hook Initiative. My focus is public housing concerns. So I'm basically like a liaison between the community and the residents. My role at RHI is to more so do education. So we do training on like how residents can advocate for themselves, learn about city government and who does what, who our elected officials are. We connect them with our elected officials' offices directly. So when we have like building-wide issues like gas outages, water outages, we are under standing construction. We connect our residents and basically my neighbors, because I live here, we connect our neighbors to the resources that can help them with repairs, with mold issues and things that we are like living with. I'm also a parent of a child that attends a Red Hook Harbor School, formerly PS 676 or formerly PS 27s. So I'm also on the PTA, and I'd like to, learn how to engage our parents into resources that are available to them, and get our parents engaged in community concerns like the development, things that are happening with the ULURP process, the last mile. We are a last mile community. So my role is also just, mostly education and making sure like information like from these meetings, I take it back to the community.
Thank you so much for Tavina for your work with
I
the Red
also
Hook.
put my information in the chat, but I can repeat it as well. Oh, I'm
Sure.
sorry. Lastly, we have a fully fund NYCHA campaign. So we have residents here. It's a form where people can fill out if they live in Red Hook, West or East, to let us know what is needed to be done and fixed in their apartments or in their buildings, so that when we do advocate for this funding, we can say we need water lines fixed, we need gas lines fixed, we need you to fix our heating systems, and we can have tangible data that comes from residents. And I'll share that in the chat as well, if that's okay.
That is definitely okay, Tavina. Thank you for your work with Red Hook Initiative and on the PTA. We know that those school leadership spaces are another great place that we can organize our parents. We appreciate you. I saw Damon's hand, Damon Lawrence.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Damon. I'm from the Lawrence family and I live in Bushwick Projects. I'm the third generation here. And due to the ridiculous amount of nonsense that's been going on here, I was not forced, but I started a youth organization called Projects Just Us, youth community engagement, where we started cleaning up mold and graffiti, and as well as putting up exit signs in 2 of our buildings. And we were railroaded by the TA. But that's a side note. I'm going to be publishing all that information pretty soon. You could check us out on YouTube. I also, due to the nonsense that's been going here with the Mayor's Action Plan and the 501c3 that they said that they cleared, Juan Ramos, I was forced to start another organization called Projects Just Us NYPD Encounters, where I had to record NYPD getting out of hand since the beginning of 2020. Not only that, due to recent events and the constant nonsense that NYCHA keeps displaying, I have a ridiculous, we literally had an inspection, I think a HUD inspection like 2 weeks ago. And the lady that was there, that was in charge of the, not in charge of the inspection, but she was supervising at the time. She was in charge of guiding the inspector, and I already had interactions with her, and she showed that she really didn't care about this development. Not only that, but the inspector showed that he didn't care about this development either. And I have everything on camera, and he actually suggested one of the workers call the cops on me because I was trying to give him information. And I got everything on camera, so nobody can say I was, defamation of character or anything of that nature. And this is why I record everything, because for like the past 2-3 years now, they've been trying to make me out to be the disgruntled, crazy resident. And I've been reading all the policies and procedures of NYCHA. I even got it in front of me. Someone in the chat mentioned that they keep on throwing policies at them. But however, there's a lot of things they're not allowed to do. And since COVID, I've been able to read a whole bunch of stuff. And that goes for NYPD Patrol Guide, the state constitution, and the constitution in general. There's a lot of things that they're not allowed to do. And the residents, because of the stigma of going to management office, are intimidated of doing, pressing them on these matters. However, we have the right and entitled to services. They are our public servants, and they're here at our service. I put my information here, and if you guys want to reach out to me, by all means, reach out. Oh, also, I can't copy and paste. I tried to copy and paste all this information. I really want everybody's information. Is there a way that you guys could like do that or something? Because I would love everyone's information. Because when I tell you everything that I have, I'm going to produce, because they really try to make me out to be a disgruntled, crazy resident, because I actually have no problem correcting people when they're wrong. And I have no problem saying, look, there's solutions, and you can't keep blaming the residents. It's not okay. Not only that, a lot of people are mad at me because I was on the other side. I was on their team, and none of them can't say I wasn't. I was on the TA board, not on the board, but I was part of the process. I was also on the part of the 501c3, Wick Against Violence. And like I said, nobody can say I'm doing defamation of character moving forward, because I recorded everything so they couldn't weaponize their tears, because it's ridiculous at this point, at this development. And right now, the NYCHA ladies and the management is trying to save face, but I recorded everything, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for sharing, Damon. And it really is a travesty how often police are weaponized against residents when they're just asking for their basic human rights to affordable and sound housing to be respected. So we appreciate you sharing. I'm wondering if maybe you can message one of us and we can copy and paste for you. Do you want to try that? And if not, I'm also going to leave an email in the chat so that you can connect with us and we can share out those resources and your information if the copy and paste continues not to work. Let's see. Camille's also saying if you would like to copy the chat, there's a button that looks like a piece of paper in the chat area. And if you click that, the chat should save for you. But thank you again, Damon, and we're so sorry that that is happening, and we are definitely here to support you. I also see the hand of Ralph James. Ralph, are you here?
Yes, I am. Hello, how we doing?
Good evening.
I live in Fulton Park houses, and for about a year now, I've been going through a real bad situation. So I'm gonna show you guys. My apartment has been left like this for over a year because there was mold and termite mess behind it. And the window frames are coming out because they haven't been placed directly onto the frame of the building. So these windows can come out at any time. HCR, I've complained to HCR. I've been on the front page of the Daily News for this is my bathroom. My bathroom has been left like this for a year. I have full custody of a 10-year-old daughter, and they told me that I should allow my child to take a shower in front of this window with no blocking or anything. We have holes, constant holes. I myself, on top of having multiple sclerosis, have been diagnosed with chronic sinusitis and upper respiratory infections. I just have a question. When is it that people like us can get help? Who do we call for help? Because apparently being in the Daily News has done nothing. Talking to government officials has done nothing. Not here to cause any trouble. Like I said, I'm raising a 10-year-old child, little girl, and I don't feel like we should have to go through this. Living in government-funded buildings. That's all.
Thank you so much, Ralph. That is infuriating. I am so sorry for you and for your baby girl. And I think you raise a great point because so many people on this call are doing the work. They're in the rooms. They're creating the policy suggestions and recommendations. They go into their meetings. They're running their meetings. They're meeting with officials. We're doing so much labor, right? But the conditions stay the same. You're saying for a year, your apartment has been like this. This is unacceptable. And so we really need to utilize this platform. Guys, we're recording this. We hope that you share. We hope that you amplify. If your superintendent isn't here, if your folks that you live with and around aren't here, please share this with them so that we can get organized and support the folks that are already doing this important work, because nobody should have to live with the conditions that Ralph is describing. Ralph, we thank you for sharing.
No problem. Have a good one.
So let me just add, I'm looking at the chat, Ralph. Ralph actually lives in the complex that I live in, but he's not lying. These are the conditions in this complex. I see Senator Bridgeport said that he met with him a few weeks ago. He'll follow up. But it's important that not only the senator follow up, but that the public advocate follow up on this issue. Although Fulton Park Plaza is not a NYCHA building, it is a Mitchell-Lama building who is receiving government assistance. And we deserve to live properly as well. Thank you, Ralph, for sharing. And Ralph is a District 16 parent.
No problem, Nick Wong.
Thank you, Naquan, as well. It's good to know folks are in community and aware of what's going on. We appreciate you. Folks, feel free to continue utilizing the chat or the raise hand feature so that we can hear from our families, from our organizers. Checking to see if Lillian Robinson or Jessica Nieves have arrived or are here. And if not, we will just continue to take public comments as they come, utilizing the raise hand feature or the chat. So I'll go ahead and check the chat. Damon, I see you. We will make sure you get a copy of the chat. No problem. There were a couple other folks who maybe wanted to speak. So I'm just going to check and see if they're here. Some did speak already. Is our Penn for Education Policy Brooklyn rep still here? Tazine? Okay, no worries. And are there any RAs who didn't get the opportunity to speak? Lisa is asking if we have any city council representation here this evening.
I don't see anyone from District 15. I know many of them were invited.
Same for District 14. And that's a worthwhile question, Lisa. I know what I plan to do for 14 is forward this information to them and connect with the folks representing Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, Williamsburg, and Greenpoint on these issues that I'm meeting here tonight. So I'm excited to get to work with folks who are most impacted and already doing the work on the ground and amplify that work to our city council members. But you make a good point, Lisa, they should be here.
Taj, I see one hand, and then after that, could we see if the senator want to have some remarks or have any suggestions for some of these concerns as well? Is that okay?
Thank you, Nikwan. Absolutely. We're going to go to Brenda, and then we're going to hear from Senator Versport. Go ahead, Brenda.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I think that we know that the conditions in public housing are terrible, and I feel for people because it's difficult to go directly to the people on the ground in the building because you don't want to be the resident that causes trouble. So how do we escalate these concerns so something gets done? Because it seems to me that as an educator, I've worked in various initiatives, and sometimes there's so much bureaucratic red tape that just prevents stuff from getting done. So what can our elected officials do, and what are you guys doing so that bureaucratic red tape is eliminated? Because it seems to me that there's a plumbing issue, somebody knows and they have the expertise to do it. So what's preventing them from getting there when it needs to happen? I don't understand. I really don't understand what is the holdup.
It's a money issue. Basically, NYCHA does not have the capital dollars to pay for the billions of dollars of work that is needed. So what's happening is that basically our electeds are working, trying to come up with different initiatives to privatize public housing in different ways. Myself and everyone else that's fighting it, and we're pushing back to have resident voice in that, to make sure that there's resident voice, that if there's funds allocated, we say where the funds need to go. That's why the survey that I shared is important, because we know, because we live in this situation where the money needs to go, but millions of dollars are being thrown at NYCHA projects, and it's for naught. I am currently in a building where they just put in $1 million plus roof, but the roof floods and has to be drained. So that was the waste of millions of dollars of labor and construction. That's one aspect of it. How you all can be an ally is that when we share out information about a meeting, when we share out information about a class, so that we can sign people up to come do some of this advocacy, so they can learn how to be aware and report on these needs and this neglect, we would like for you to share that information out with you said, you're an educator. So share out our survey and share out my info to parents. And if parents are in public housing, they can reach out. They have someone to reach out to. It's we have to learn how to be each other's resource and advocate.
Thank you. I definitely will share out your survey.
I can speak to this as well. So NYCHA this last fiscal report, NYCHA generated $4.1 billion, and about 60% of that goes towards personal services, which is basically the contractors. based on the federal acquisition guidelines, they have to go with the lowest bidding contractor. So sometimes they hire on some contractors that don't necessarily have good backgrounds. I know, like, for example, in the Jacob Free situation, what happened is that they hired on a contractor that wasn't certified by the city, right? And then it brought up a result, a false positive result for arsenic. And then they spent even more money to hire on then certified contractors who then came up with proper results, and then had to spend even more money to kind of double certify those results. So it's a lot of like mismanagement of the money. In addition to on the ground staff, there's usually one superintendent for multiple developments versus there's not a parity in superintendents when it comes to residents. So there could be, I'm just fudging the numbers here, 100,000 residents in one complex and 100,000 residents on another complex A, and then another 100,000 on complex B. And there's one superintendent to manage both of those complexes, or one superintendent and their team to manage those complexes. And what we said in our report is that there needs to be parity when it comes to superintendents and residents. So it should be a superintendent per building, like most other private residences, not a superintendent for an entire complex. So like when someone puts a ticket in, right, the superintendent now is like, oh, I gotta do maybe 50,000 repairs, let me, and this is just me right now, right? I can't speak for these superintendents, but like for some of them, they might be burnt out and they're like, hey, I don't want to do 50,000 repairs. Let me disappear some of these tickets, right? Because they're not receiving the funding and they're not receiving the resources to complete 50,000 repairs. They need other people to also do those repairs as well. But again, like my information's in the chat. Feel free to send me these complaints. We're trying to work on it. The process right now, unfortunately, is that electeds have to kind of go and make up a whole bunch of noise just to get anything done. And unfortunately, the cycle is that when we show up, that's when NYCHA start to clean up everything, and that's when they start to tape over everything over. And it shouldn't have to be like that, right? That we, every single time one of us shows up, you know, that's when they want to fix everything.
Right. Thank you, John. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I also wanted to make a little space for an organic conversation. So I'm so grateful to every single person on this call who is sharing, who is giving us, honestly, a reality check. Many of you living, of course, you know what's going on. And we're so thankful to the public advocate and other folks on this call. Out of respect for time and the request for many on the call for some tangible solutions, right? What can we do? We're going to swing it to Senator Jabari Brisport, and then we are going to discuss exactly that. Your Brooklyn North CEC presidents and Brooklyn-wide CEC presidents have come together to compile some resources, including a resolution that speaks to, at the policy level, some changes that we can make with the public advocate's office that can really see some of the things we know need to happen come to fruition. So we're going to hear from Senator Brisport, and then we're going to get to those tangible ways that we can support our NYCHA residents. Senator Brisport.
Yes, thank you, President Sutton. Really appreciate it. Hi, Brooklyn North. Good to see you. Senator Brisport here. For those who don't know, I represent about 10 to 12 various neighborhoods in Brooklyn North. All the lines are redistricted this year. So for all intents and purposes, moving forward, just assume I am your senator if you live in the neighborhoods of Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, Prospect Heights, or Brownsville. Top line things are, if you are not hearing back from NYCHA, you can always reach out to your local elected officials to escalate it. People do that in my district all the time, and we make the calls directly to our contact at NYCHA to escalate things and make sure they are looked at in a timely fashion. Two, I addressed it in the chat, but if you're a resident of Fulton Park Plaza, myself, the Assemblywoman, have been in contact with HCR to look for new management for Fulton Park, there needs to be a change. And I'm just checking with they have a short list of around 4 they're vetting. If none of them are good, I'll help them look for more potential people to take over, but we will find new management because the current one is not working out. I also wanted to say, repeating what one of the woman from RHI said earlier, the on the ground organizing, always appreciated. The work that y'all are doing, locally in your own developments is just incredible. And big picture stuff in terms of funding, there are the capital needs, but we're also pushing for more operating funding in NYCHA as well. So they can hire more people to man the hotlines, make sure the portals are being answered in a timely fashion. And, we were all hoping on Build Back Better at the federal level, which didn't come through. So at the state level, I think we're going to be doing a big push to tax the rich, tax the wealthiest New Yorkers, and push a lot of money into money for public housing and new social housing.
Thank you so much, Senator Brisport. I want to just draw everyone's attention to what Camille has began to post in the chat. Also, resources Tavina is sharing. The fully funded NYCHA survey is in the chat. We would love it if everyone could take 30 seconds, go ahead and fill that out, and also copy and paste that link and share it within your communities, because we all know that the more data and anecdotal evidence we have, the stronger a case we can make as we continue to build out this work and find our tribe and make things happen for our NYCHA residents. I also want to draw your attention to what Camille posted. Contact the budget director at City Hall and tell him to fast track much needed capital work through a job order contract or JOC. So we have the budget director at City Hall's information in the chat, their Twitter, as well as their New York City site where you can message them directly. There's also a place to track NYCHA capital projects. That link is also in the chat. I just want to give folks the opportunity to copy and paste. If folks want to take a couple seconds now to go ahead and fill out that survey, I just know the importance and the time sensitiveness of surveys. And so if folks can get that done tonight, that would be really, really great. And Camille, we can send a follow-up email with all of these resources to our attendees, yes?
Camille, do you want to discuss?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, Nippon, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I said, do you want to discuss the resolution that we're going to be getting, asking councils to pass?
I am. I was just trying to drop it again in the chat. Just give me one more minute. And so the resolution is a resolution to support reform of the NYCHA repair process. And much of this was taken from the white paper that the public advocate put out. But the advocacy efforts that I've been dropping in the chat, those are the resolves on the resolution. And so that we are basically asking for support to amend the local law 55 2018, which is the Healthy Homes Act. And the ask is that NYCHA be included in that act. Another ask is to amend local law 127 2021 to mandate automatic inspections by New York City inspectors and the issuance of any building or housing code violations, and work together to supply resources, including funds needed to support New Yorkers living in public housing. And then another is what I dropped in the chat about the New York City Office of Management and Budget, that they would allow NYCHA to utilize job order contracts for certain capital eligible projects. And that would assist in fast tracking these repairs so that it's not subject to the long delays that are inherent in the federal procurement process. I'm so sorry. And then mandating that NYCHA, I'm so sorry, provide 1 month notice in advance of the resident meetings when they are going to be presenting their upcoming capital work in that development, so that residents know this is coming and they're able to participate. So I'm so sorry. If you could all just, I'll drop it in the chat and we'll share it by email. But please share this draft resolution with your CECs and your President Council, because it has a lot of value and we can get a lot of support and a lot of changes made if we all come together around these same issues. I just want to thank everybody who took the time to come out this evening. Really appreciate you all. John Francis, we could not have done this without you. And our public advocate, such a strong, amazing person for this job, and just so happy that he is here representing us. Thank you, Senator Bridgeport, and all of my CEC friends and parents and community members. I'll let Kwan close us out, and thank you to Taj, who did an incredible job as always with the moderating.
Thank you again for joining us tonight. As Camille said, we will send out these resources to everyone that joined the call. We also did tape tonight's session so that if anyone wants the recording of it. We do thank Senator Bridgeport, and we do thank John from the Public Advocate's Office and the Public Advocate for joining us. We do also thank the Borough President for his representation, representative that was here tonight. And we're going to do this. We're going to stick together to make this happen. So we will be asking all of the Brooklyn North CECs to bring these resolutions up at your next CEC meeting, and hopefully it can pass so that we can put more pressure on the city to do what they need to do for our NYCHA residents, because we understand that living conditions also affect how our children are learning in school and how our children are showing up to school. So once again, thank you for being in community with us tonight, and we look forward to meeting you again.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Thank you,
Well done.
everybody. Good
Well
night.
done.
Good night. Well done.